play versus discipline. I think for some people, it would be helpful to try and operationalize a bit of what we're going to go to today. And I know you're not a fan of like morning routine or this or that, but I can imagine walking toward a practice of any kind, a workout of any kind, making scrambled eggs, as either I'm going to approach this with a sense of play, or I'm going to approach this with a sense of discipline. I'm going to try and find some friction, some edges that force me to rewire something. Now, play can help rewire, discipline can help rewire, but of your waking hours, what percentage of time do you spend in kind of a playful, explorative state, like kind of keep it light and loose versus, I know you're also a believer in like there's really value to putting up mental or physical or both corridors so that your whole system improves, because at those friction points is where plasticity can be triggered.
I think both of these things, and also the relation to motivation in both of them, are required scaffoldings that we have to use at certain points in time, but are not the essential will, that connection to what we don't know nothing about that. We have researched that deeply in various spheres, but often we just replace pure will with discipline or with motivation. But once I motivated myself, I don't need will anymore. And if I discipline myself into doing something, I also hijack the opportunity. Playfulness, it brings a direction and a flavor of something else, a different way to interact with something. How do we start to look at that? What is the basic requirement? I don't want to do this. Without this requirement, I can't research will. Mm-hmm. Now, if I hijack it, if I take the process and I distort it, I use discipline, then again, I'm out of the game. Or if I motivate myself, same problem. Playfulness try to walk a different path a little bit. Maybe it's not it quite. It's not the will, that search for will that, many authors and practitioners have looked for because it's so elusive. But it's definitely something to cultivate. And we've talked about it the last time we met. And it brings about so many positive things. I think people should first develop discipline and use motivation and also research playfulness, which is a lot more tricky for people these days. It brings with it incredible benefits. The aesthetic intensities that are missing from our lives, awe, curiosity, this deep sense of curiosity, these things can allow us to totally transform the emotional schema, which is stuck, rigid, this model of ourselves that is oftentimes rigidifies all the way to depression, the most tricky situation of all, the total bankruptcy of that budget, of those resources. So something like awe, which happens also in psychedelics, isn't this a huge part of the psychedelic thing? What about experiencing awe regularly in a directed, targeted, and practiced way? It can be cold showers and hot shower. An experience on the sensory level, it can be something that is more related to the environment, like sky gazing. Incredible practice. 10 minutes a day. Your eyes cannot grab onto things. And it can be, and very important, conceptual awe, reading poetry or certain types of stories or literature touches that. So all of this comes along with playfulness, our interaction with things. I treat this as a playful thing. Mm-hmm. So if I think about it, it's almost always present. because it allows me not to rigidify myself in front of the challenge. I'm working with athletes or work in cinema or do some project or work with a government body or a military organization. I bring playfulness. Playfulness allows me to go much further, much deeper. My discipline wouldn't get me there. It got me certain places. Who got there to that place? I discovered that it wasn't me because I use discipline. So it's often leaving you kind of out, the totality of you.
I am very, very intrigued by this play versus discipline thing. So many years spent, I wouldn't say punching the clock, but they're just things you have to do because experiments have to be done in this time, in this way. One can develop a real sense of an ability to push through and to do things. And beautiful stuff can come out of what I call chop wood, carry water. It's just like phase is like, okay, we're just going to chop wood, carry water. But this play thing is really powerful. I had this experience when I lived in San Diego. My lab started there. And I used to commute really far to work because my home was in an area that I really liked and that I could afford, far from campus. And the traffic was just brutal. Anyone that's ever driven in San Diego, these big, wide 8-lane freeways. And I like listening to music, so I would drive. And I remember one morning just being so frustrated with the drive, even though traffic was moving. And I've only had this experience once. And I just decided, I'm going to just slalom the car to work. And I wasn't speeding. I'm like slaloming the car. I'm listening to music. And I'm like, this is the way to go to work. I can remember this one commute is a real standout experience in my life of like, and I thought, why don't I do this all the time?
The old frog crosses the street video game.
Right,
Remember that?
Exactly. So I'm just, and I get to work and I do the thing. And this was one instance. I don't think I've ever done it again. And I like to drive, but I never deliberately turn on, like, I'm going to take an ordinary experience that I do every single day that usually is kind of like loath or mildly irritated at traffic. I'm just going to enjoy this experience. I think now that it would be so great to just be able to apply that to all these different little transitions. Oddly enough, I also have flashbulb-like memories of being in Yosemite, where I've spent a lot of time. I've hiked a lot of the peaks in Yosemite. I love it. I lived and worked up there when I was in college, and I just adore it. You know what I remember? The great vistas and great peas that I had urinating in the woods. I have flashbulb memories of and there's something there. I think it's just the common relaxation, I'm just a creature peeing in the woods, and as one does, when you can't, just thinking, this is awesome. I have my life is great. It's so weird that these micro experiences that occupy 10 to 15 seconds or a minute, depending on how much water you drink, right? One commute could grab real mental real estate in our brain. There's something there, and I know people are probably thinking this is crazy, but I think most people would probably describe kind of odd flashbulb memories that they have of things that are kind of trivial.
Did you notice the quality of those memories? Because you recall them, and it has a flavor and a texture and a resolution, which is different than other things, which sometimes should have been a lot more detailed. And it comes and goes, but we can become a lot more deliberate about it. And it represents a certain presence in that specific scenario of it's a heightened presence thing. Why? Those are questions. But playfulness opens the door for that. Some of my best sits, my best meditations were using a playful approach. Similarly to how you navigate the traffic. You can use it right in your book.
I tried that. It was I will tell you, it's very difficult. Because there's aspects of the book that are very technical. There are aspects that I really want to communicate things in a certain way. I definitely tried to relax myself. Cal Newport, who's a guy who's a big proponent of deep work, staying away from technology to, writing by hand, typewriter, this kind of thing. He said, and I tried this, he said to approach work with kind of a languid intentionality, kind of relaxed, but with a direction. I tried it. I have to scruff myself and bring myself to it. Even though I want to do it, And I'm just like, after like I imagine I'm like doing this.
But that deep belief is already a self-fulfilling prophecy because you perceive yourself as that person. This is the way for you to do things. Mm-hmm. And I'm similar, but I've glimpsed something else. Yes, I'm the disciplinary person. I'm a person of great work ethic, and this is how I came about. But then I discovered it doesn't matter. Because how you write that book, using that approach, it leaks into your words. And it's a different way of doing things. You're not going to write Don Quixote in this way. So I appreciate that. And I also want to say, come back to that thing. This scaffolding, the fact that we have used discipline for such a long time is very positive. We need that. The first thing is to get things done. I'm the practice person. I'm the met person. You do it or you talk about it. So discipline is very important, but it's similar to the wall in learning to do a handstand. If you use the wall one way, where you're all the time pushing yourself off of the wall, try to catch your handstand, you become reliant on the wall. Notice what I said. You push yourself off of the wall, but there is a different approach. We can use the wall, but pull off of it. Not quite push ourselves off of it, but pull off of it, which comes from the other end, from our hands, from the connection to the ground. That does not necessitate a wall. So I can pull myself when I feel myself falling forward later on. This is the correct way to use discipline. You should use it as a scaffolding, as a way to get things going, like write that book. But inside the process, you must make sure you don't lean hard into it. You don't leave everything for it to dictate. And you bring some playfulness, some relaxation, some deep choice. I want to do this.